Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Tamar Meisels, and today I'm going to explain the basics of the Oral Torah. So we have the written Torah, which is known as the 5 books of Moses. These 5 books were dictated to Moshe word for word, and he wrote it down in the 5 books. So what is the Oral Torah? Okay, so when we read these 5 books and we want to actually do what they say, we want to fulfill the commandments, we have to ask ourselves, how do we do these commandments? I want to keep the Shabbos. How do I do so? I want to blow the shofar. I want to build a sukkah. There's no details. And also, what do I do in cases where there's conflicts in certain values? What do I do? That's where the Oral Torah comes in. Rambam lists a few categories of the Oral Torah. The first one is explanations and details that were given to Moshe. So we say that the written Torah was accompanied by a body of oral Torah, information given to Moshe at the time he was given the Torah. So this means, for example, we know that when it says, Lo tasu kol mecha, don't do any work on the Sabbath, that these were the 39 jobs done in the Mishkan in the desert. Or for example, it says, Kol pri etz hadar, a citrus, you must bring a citrus. We know that this means an etrog. And the third example is pretty interesting, eye for an eye. It says that if someone takes out someone's eye, his punishment is they take out his eye. Now, we know that this does not mean literally. We all agree that this means that maybe in essence he deserves to have his eye taken out, but in actuality it means he's going to have to pay money to compensate that person. There are many hints for this oral body of information. A lot of times in the written Torah it says, as I have commanded you, or as I told you. And we look at the written Torah, where does it say this? And the answer is that more information was given in the Oral Torah that accompanied. The second category that the Rambam lists is laws that are derived logically. So at the time, we were given 13 logical rules that help us learn rules and details of the commandments. An example of this is cooking on the holiday. It says in the written Torah we're allowed to cook on Passover, and we derive from this through the logical laws that we are allowed to cook on all the other holidays. That's one example. Another thing we use with our logic is new circumstance that arise with time. The rabbis in your time look at new situations that did not exist. For example, we have a microwave. A microwave is a new invention, it did not exist, and we have to look at the microwave and say, are we allowed to use a microwave on Shabbos? So they use all their logic, halachic decision, and they arrive at a ruling. The third one is Gzerot and takanot. This means ruling and decrees. It says in the Torah, you should do offense to my commandments. So one example of this is Chachamim, sages, taught us not to cook or eat chicken and milk. They did this so that we wouldn't mistakenly eat meat and dairy. So in order to create a fence for this commandment, we have the chicken and milk prohibition as well. The second one is more positive rulings, things that they added to enhance our Jewish life. For example, prayer. Forefathers prayed, we've prayed all throughout the generation, but the way prayer is today, where it's 3 times a day, a set prayer with specific blessings, the davening, the prayer, exact prayer that we say today, this was a takana. This was a ruling that was made by Chachamim. So the first category, there are no disagreements about. We all know that, for example, pri etz hadar means an etrog, means a citron. But the second and third categories, there can be disagreements. Now, what do we do in case of disagreement? Now, this is a very important part where the Sanhedrin comes into effect. This judicial system decided on specific cases, decided on rulings, and the way they did this in case of disagreement was they reached a majority of votes. What's interesting with the Gzerot and takanot, with the rulings and decrees, is that the people have a lot of say in it. Meaning, first of all, the Sanhedrin does not add a decree. They're not allowed to add a decree if they think that the public, the people, won't be able to adhere to it. And also, if the public don't, even after a majority ruling, and the public does not accept this, then it falls and is no longer mandatory. But once the people do commit to this decree, then it is completely mandatory. And if another Sanhedrin generations later decides to change a ruling, there are ways to do this. Can the Sanhedrin, can the majority ruling make mistakes? Yes, they can make mistakes. In fact, in the Talmud, we have examples where mistakes have been made. That is part of the system, but we know that lo bashamayim hi. The Torah is not in the heavens. The Torah was given to man to make changes and to amend, and making mistakes is part of the system. Today we are a bit of a disadvantage because we don't have this judicial system. We don't have a Sanhedrin at hand who can, arrive at rulings that are accepted by everyone. And so we do have a lot of different opinions, and we have to look to the main sages and wise men of our times. But why do we have an oral Torah? Why couldn't it all just be written? We know that God wanted it to be this way. And maybe one of the reasons we see is that it keeps the Torah very relevant and alive. It's something that we develop, we learn it, we reach decisions. Also very interesting is that the written Torah actually became a holy book to both the Christians and the Muslims, whereas the oral Torah, basically the keys to understand that written Torah and to fulfill it in our everyday life, that's something that the Jews have and was not something that became part of the Muslim and Christian tradition. So something very dramatic happened about 150 years after the Second Temple was destroyed. There is a real danger that major parts of the oral Torah might be forgotten in this long exile ahead. So what Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi does is takes the oral Torah and he writes it down in a very concise way. And in order to understand what is written, you really need to learn it orally with people around you, by your teachers or in groups. So by doing it that way, we're still needing to learn it orally, but at the same time, we don't have the danger that it will be forgotten. And then we have another body, which is the Gemara, the Talmud, which is discussions on the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Most amazing thing is that we have thousands and thousands of people learning these books, learning the oral Torah, thousands of years after it was given. To those of you who want to base your lives solely on the written Torah, which is the Bible, first of all, it's not possible. There's not enough information how to live by the commandments. And that's not what God intended. God intended to have this built-in system where we learn Torah orally from teacher to teacher for generations till today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up.